The year is 2019. New England added Lombardi number 6 to their trophy case with a 13-3 victory in one of the worst Super Bowls of the century. But the array of weapons was either old or unestablished, with Rob Gronkowski having just retired. Patrick Mahomes just threw 50 touchdowns and won MVP in his first season as a starter, but Steve Spagnuolo was hired as defensive coordinator to fix a broken defense. And Lamar Jackson went 6-1 to win the AFC North as a rookie. Skepticism about whether his play style could win in January was real, but reports out of camp were that he was ready to take the next step as a passer. Aaron Rodgers was getting a fresh start with new head coach Matt LaFleur, but year 2 Baker Mayfield was now the face of the league's most hyped franchise. Cleveland signed Kareem Hunt, acquired Odell Beckham Jr. in a blockbuster trade, promoted Freddie Kitchens to head coach, and expectations skyrocketed to the championship level. Number 1 overall pick Kyler Murray was a test case for the future as a small quarterback in a college system transplanted directly into the NFL. Cliff Kingsbury's Cardinals were betting against decades of conventional wisdom. But the Giants added their own quarterback mystery when they selected Duke's Daniel Jones 6th overall, and the immediate reaction was to mock them. Jones was labeled a reach, a panic move drafted purely because he looked like Eli Manning. New York insisted they saw intelligence, toughness, and long-term upside in one of the most questioned picks of the 2010s. At 15, the Redskins selected Dwayne Haskins in the first round after a 50-touchdown season at Ohio State, and the appeal was obvious: a big body, strong arm, and production in a pro-style offense. But coaches felt the pressure everywhere. Andy Reid needed postseason validation. Sean McVay needed to prove he hadn't just been figured out by Bill Belichick. Jason Garrett was coaching for his job, Bill O'Brien 1-3 in the playoffs, and Mike Zimmer was nearing a ceiling. San Francisco, on paper, had a great roster. Nick Bosa had just taken 2nd overall, and Kyle Shanahan widely regarded as one of the sharpest offensive minds in football. But Jimmy Garoppolo was returning from a torn ACL, and outside of a brief hot streak in 2017, no one truly knew what he was. But the most exciting move of the 2019 offseason came in March, when Pittsburgh finally cut ties with Antonio Brown. After years as the league's greatest receiver, the relationship between Brown and the Steelers eroded in ugly fashion, so he was shipped to the Oakland Raiders for 3rd and 5th round picks, a stunningly low return that reflected how toxic the situation had become. John Gruden believed that he was buying a superstar that would take his offense to the next level and usher in a new era. Instead, the league watched as Oakland's optimism evaporated before Week 1. Helmet grievances, frostbitten feet, missed practices, IG posts, and spats with GM Mike Mayock turned Brown's arrival into a daily spectacle. He was cut by the team before Week 1 and immediately scooped up by the Patriots. But AB wasn't the only superstar to leave Pittsburgh. After sitting out the entire 2018 season in a contract standoff, Le'Veon Bell signed with the New York Jets, fully disbanding the most productive offensive trio of the decade, and giving the Jets what they believed was the new engine of their offense. And just weeks before the season began, the NFL was blindsided when Andrew Luck abruptly announced his retirement at age 29. Coming off the 2nd best year of his career, Luck walked away after years of injuries, rehab cycles, and pain that had worn him down. The Colts went from a dark horse Super Bowl team to starting Jacoby Brissett at QB. Super Bowl 60 is finally here, and the timing could not be better, because I've partnered with DraftKings Sportsbook to bring new customers an insane offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Bet $5, and if it hits, you're getting $300 in bonus bets back. Whether you're into anytime touchdown bets, player props, building same-game parlays, DraftKings gives you more ways to stay locked into every single moment. And if you love live betting, you can jump in during the game, bet on star player props as things unfold, and ride the momentum in real time. So new customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now, sign up using promo code BEACHKID, bet $5, and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours. New England began their season in typical fashion by dismantling the Steelers 33-3. But after Antonio Brown's exciting debut in a 43-0 win at Miami, what would have been a season-changing addition only lasted one game before he was released again due to surfacing allegations. Still, the Patriots went undefeated in September. Lamar Jackson obliterated Miami in Week 1, erasing virtually all skepticism by throwing 5 touchdowns. Patrick Mahomes, meanwhile, picked up right where he left off, throwing 3 or more touchdowns in 3 of his first 4 games. And while the Chiefs' defense let up at least 25 points in 3 of their first 4, the offense still carried them to 4-0 despite Tyreek Hill missing almost all of the month due to a Week 1 dislocated shoulder. But the offseason champion Browns got kicked in the mouth in Week 1, getting blown out by 30 at home against Tennessee, committing 18 penalties. 2 weeks later, only another 13 points against the Rams before a long-awaited 40 in Week 4. It was early, but overall, the talent-filled Browns offense was disappointing mightily. However, Ben Roethlisberger's season-ending elbow injury in Week 2 bode well for their chances in the AFC North. Kyler Murray displayed brilliance and frustration, making electric plays in a winless month. But Daniel Jones replaced Eli Manning in Week 3 and stunned everyone with a spotless 4-touchdown dual-threat debut and wins in his first 2 starts. The Saints lost Drew Brees for 1 to 2 months, but were 3-1 anyway. Chicago's defense remained elite, vaulting them to a 3-1 effort in spite of their offense. Their one loss coming to Green Bay, who was also 3-1. San Francisco was undefeated, and Dallas started 3-1 thanks to an MVP caliber month from Dak Prescott, typical Ezekiel Elliott performances, and a breakout from rookie back Tony Pollard. But in New York, September was a nightmare, the likes of which the city hadn't seen in 18 years. Sam Darnold catching mono, Adam Gase's coaching, and an evidently washed-up $50 million running back multiplied to equal a nice 0-4 record. Le'Veon Bell ran into stacked boxes behind one of the league's worst O-lines, grinding inefficient carries that looked nothing like his Pittsburgh prime. Just 1 month in, you could rule the Bell contract a sunk cost. Undefeated New England bullied Washington, shut out the Jets, and smoothly improved to 8-0. The defense was doing historic things, allowing just 7.6 points per game, while scoring more touchdowns than it allowed through 2 months. Their closest call thus far being a 16-10 win against Buffalo back in Week 4. But in Week 5, the Ravens took down the Steelers in overtime at Heinz Field. Then, after running for 152 yards in a win against Cincinnati, Lamar ran for another 116 in Seattle, leading the Ravens to an undefeated October. Kansas City, on the other hand, lost at home to the Colts in Week 5. Then Thursday night in Denver, Mahomes dislocated his kneecap on a quarterback sneak. The Chiefs still won the game, but the reigning MVP was set to miss some time. Cleveland's dysfunction continued, highlighted by a 31-3 Monday night loss to San Francisco, while Pittsburgh, written off after Ben Roethlisberger's injury, found an identity with their defense, forcing at least 3 turnovers in each October contest and reminding everyone that Mike Tomlin's teams finish middle of the pack no matter what. The Saints won all 5 games without Drew Brees, reclaiming control of the NFC South with Teddy Bridgewater, before Brees' return and victory in Week 8 versus Arizona. At the same time, Carolina quietly put together their own run. After Cam Newton went down, the Panthers ripped off 4 straight wins from mid-September into October with Kyle Allen at QB and absurd performances from Christian McCaffrey, creating the illusion that they had solved life after Cam. The 49ers, though, entered October perfect and left the same way. They beat Cleveland on Monday night, then followed it up with a win over the Rams, which marked LA's 3rd straight loss. After that, the Niners shut out the Redskins before hanging 51 on Carolina as Nick Bosa sacked Kyle Allen 3 times. The offense was explosive and the defense was nearly as good. In Week 9, the Niners traveled to Arizona and improved to 8-0. As for the Rams, they were having the dreaded Super Bowl hangover. Todd Gurley was just not the Todd Gurley of old, and a 3-game losing streak that began with them allowing 55 points to Tampa leaked into the first 2 weeks of October, blowing a late lead to Seattle before their loss to the 49ers. But October was Minnesota's best stretch of the season. After an uneven start, the Vikings went undefeated through this month, highlighted by Kirk Cousins' statement win versus Philly, where he threw 4 touchdowns, 3 of which went to Stephon Diggs, followed by another 4 touchdowns against Detroit that came with a big performance from Dalvin Cook. Minnesota was 6-2. And after a promising start, coming off one of their best seasons in franchise history, the Bears lost 4 straight. With Mitch Trubisky at the helm and the offense scoring under 20 points more often than not, the defense could only carry them so far. The Saints exposed them Week 7 in a 36-25 loss, and Chicago was no longer a contender. But left for dead after Andrew Luck's retirement, Indianapolis quietly put together one of the most impressive Octobers in the league, most notably a 19-13 Week 5 win over the Chiefs at Arrowhead. They finished off a 3-0 month to reach 5-2. Other October moments included Daniel Jones having his welcome to the NFL stretch, throwing 7 picks in a 4-game span, Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson each throwing 5 touchdowns and wins, and Jameis Winston tossing 5 interceptions against the Panthers, shaping up to make his own special kind of history. In Week 9, New England traveled to Baltimore where Lamar Jackson and the Ravens ran them off the field, handing the Patriots their first loss in an emphatic 37-20 statement. The Pats would recover, winning their next 2, but only scoring 17 and 13 points. Offensive performances that did nothing to quell concerns that they just didn't have the juice. Baltimore, though, hit overdrive. After the Pats, they scored 40 points in their next 3 games, outscoring opponents 135-26, as Lamar accounted for 4, 4, and 5 touchdowns. He took full control of the MVP race, and Baltimore was gunning for the AFC's top seed. And like the Patriots, the 8-0 49ers lost a Week 10 overtime game to Seattle, but they also responded by besting Arizona, then destroying Green Bay on Sunday night, 37-8 to reassert their dominance. But Russell Wilson caught fire too, throwing 5 touchdowns in an OT comeback win against Tampa 1 week prior to their 49ers victory. Seattle was 9-2. The Saints won 3 of 4 in November with Breeze back, but most eyes were on the reception record, as Michael Thomas had 110 catches through 12 games, on pace for 156 to shatter Marvin Harrison's 143 from 2002. The Packers came into November 7-1, but exited the month 8-3, while the Vikings beat Dallas on Sunday night and made an explosive fourth quarter comeback versus Denver, featuring long touchdowns to Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph. And Tennessee got rolling as well. From weeks 10 to 14, Derrick Henry averaged 150 rushing yards a game and scored 7 touchdowns. Ryan Tannehill, who had taken over for Marcus Mariota as the starter in October, threw 2 touchdowns in every single start except for 1. And rookie receiver A.J. Brown was on the verge of a massive breakout. Their epic Week 10 win over Kansas City was the first of 4 straight. The Bills had a 3-1 month, leaning on a rugged defense and a conservative offensive approach. They beat Washington, Miami, and Denver, while their lone loss came in a low-scoring affair with Cleveland. Josh Allen was nothing like the MVP he'd become, but Buffalo was in the thick of the AFC playoff picture. Even the Browns won 3 straight, and momentarily looked like the team people expected in August. Nick Chubb powered the offense, and they notched wins over Buffalo and Pittsburgh, improving to 5-6. But in their Week 11 win over Pittsburgh, Myles Garrett bashed Mason Rudolph over the head with his own helmet, earning a suspension for the remainder of the season in one of the most what-the-fuck moments in NFL history. Jameis Winston, though, really found his groove, throwing 2 interceptions to Arizona, 4 to the Saints, and another pair against the Falcons. Good enough for a win in 2 of those 3. Baltimore entered December already 9-2, but managed to outdo themselves. Lamar closed his MVP campaign with authority, beating San Francisco and Buffalo, then throwing 5 touchdowns against the Jets while setting the single-season rushing record for a QB, and running for 100 yards in a blowout of the Browns before resting Week 17. He ended with 43 total touchdowns, and Baltimore clinched the AFC's top seed with the best offense in football, the number 3 defense, and the Coach of the Year, John Harbaugh. But New England opened December with ugly losses to Houston and Kansas City before crushing Buffalo and Cincinnati. But their Week 15 trip to Cincinnati revived ugly memories of the franchise's past, when they were caught filming the Bengals sideline from a press box. They insisted it was a production error tied to a team documentary, but the league eventually fined New England and stripped a 3rd-round pick anyhow. And in Week 17, the bottom fell out at home against Miami. Their first home loss to the Dolphins since 2008 cost them 2 decades worth of aura and a first-round bye. For the first time in a decade, New England would have to play on Wild Card Weekend. But on the bright side, lockdown corner Stephon Gilmore was the Defensive Player of the Year. Patrick Mahomes returned to full strength after his November return, and the Chiefs won every December game without much drama to speak of, outscoring opponents by a combined 143-52 over the final 5 weeks. Kansas City took the AFC's second seed from the Pats and were more dangerous than at any point all season. In the NFC, San Francisco and Seattle built toward their Week 17 showdown, but before that, the 49ers lost a physical battle in Baltimore, then recovered to beat New Orleans in one of the games of the year, a 48-46 shootout that announced San Francisco could win in any style of game, overcoming 6 Drew Brees touchdowns. Then a 34-31 win over the Rams, who never fully got it together and missed the playoffs at 9-7. Seattle, meanwhile, dropped 2 of 3 heading into Week 17. Worst of all, an unacceptable 27-13 loss to last place Arizona, who might have finished near the bottom of the standings, but Kyler showed why he was the number 1 pick with a strong second half of the season to beat out Josh Jacobs and A.J. Brown for Offensive Rookie of the Year. But Week 17, the NFC West title and the conference's top seed, was determined in Seattle. The game swung back and forth until a goal line stand sealed it for the 49ers. The Seahawks fell to the 5 seed, finishing 11-5, while San Francisco went 13-3 in the best division in football, and Nick Bosa took home Defensive Rookie of the Year. New Orleans won 4 of 5 while scoring at least 34 points in 6 of their last 7. Drew Brees broke the all-time touchdown record in a blowout of the Colts, and Michael Thomas shattered the single-season reception mark 1 week later against the Titans. He would be named Offensive Player of the Year, and the Saints took the NFC's 3rd seed right behind Green Bay, who won their final 5 despite a handful of nail-biters against some of the worst teams in the league. Aaron Rodgers wasn't at his peak, not having exceeded 26 passing touchdowns since 2016, which caused most people to think he was simply past his prime, a narrative he would demolish during the next 2 seasons. But in 2019, they still went 13-3, the NFC's 2 seed in year 1 under Matt LaFleur. However, the Vikings certainly did not finish the season strong. Dalvin Cook missed the final 2 weeks, both losses to Green Bay and Chicago, who finished 8-8 as Minnesota grabbed a wild card at 10-6. The Titans began December on the outside looking in, but A.J. Brown's 150 yards and 2 touchdowns led them to a 42-21 win over the Raiders in Week 14, and Derrick Henry's 211 yards and 3 touchdowns in Week 17 carried them to a win over Houston and a playoff berth. The Bills clinched a wild card at 10-6, but Philadelphia tripped and fell into the NFC East crown at 9-7. The reason they won the division was due to the fact that the Cowboys went 1-6 in one-score games, ending up with only 8 wins despite an elite offense led by 4,900 yards and 30 touchdowns from Dak, and the final year of 24-year-old Ezekiel Elliott's true prime to go along with a borderline top 10 defense. The Browns ended the year on a pathetic 3-game losing streak to put the stamp on one of the most dispiriting years in franchise history, and Freddie Kitchens was rightfully fired. And after surviving the season's early months without Andrew Luck, Indy unsurprisingly faded badly, as it became a challenge for their offense to put up more than 20 points, while it was a challenge for the defense to let up less than 30, allowing Houston to overtake them in the AFC South, who technically did what they needed to do to win the division, but almost nothing about the month or the entire season inspired unshakable confidence. Middle of the pack in offense and defense, both units oscillated wildly throughout the year. They went 10-6, but never once won more than 2 games in a row. Deshaun Watson threw 26 touchdowns in his final, somewhat bland winning season as a Texan. And speaking of final seasons, the Raiders wrapped up their last one in Oakland, highlighted by over 1,100 yards each from Josh Jacobs and breakout tight end Darren Waller. And Eli Manning made the final start of his career in a Week 15 win over Miami. The Panthers ended the year on an 8-game losing streak. However, Christian McCaffrey made history with over 1,000 yards rushing and receiving. But Jameis Winston had established himself as arguably the must-watch player in the NFL. And by season's end, he did something the league had never seen, a 30-touchdown, 30-interception season. Some weeks, Jameis looked unstoppable, ripping defenses apart down the field without a care in the world. Other weeks, he single-handedly buried his own team with hilarious mistakes. And sometimes, he managed to do both in the same quarter. Plus, he made both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans top 5 receivers in fantasy. And for that, we thank him. The Buccaneers' 7-9 season came to a poetic close in overtime against Atlanta, when Winston threw a pick-6 to Deion Jones for his 30th interception, a storybook ending to one of the most sacred quarterback campaigns in NFL history. Saturday afternoon, in what Bill Simmons would call the Shakey's game, the Texans erased a 16-0 deficit to beat the Bills 22-19 in overtime. Deshaun Watson sparked the comeback with clutch plays and 2 scores, escaping pass rushers on Houston's final drive before Kaimi Fairbairn's walk-off field goal. That same night, the Titans eliminated New England 20-13 behind a dominant Derrick Henry. After a tight first half, defense took over and Logan Ryan sealed it with a late pick 6. The loss ended the Patriots' dynasty. Sunday afternoon, the Vikings ripped the Saints' heart out for the second time in 3 years, winning 26-20 in overtime. Adam Thielen overcame an early fumble to dominate, setting up Kyle Rudolph's game-winning touchdown and Kirk Cousins' first playoff win. And lastly, the Seahawks beat the injury-ravaged Eagles 17-9, capitalizing after Jadeveon Clowney knocked Carson Wentz out early. Russell Wilson and rookie DK Metcalf propelled Seattle, while 40-year-old Josh McCown could not counter with meaningful offense. To begin the divisional round, Tevin Coleman scored twice in an overwhelming San Francisco rushing attack. The defense bottled up Dalvin Cook and sacked Kirk Cousins 6 times in a 27-10 victory over the Vikings. Then, the Titans shocked the top-seeded Ravens 28-12. Riding a 195-yard Derrick Henry performance, Tennessee capitalized on turnovers and built an early lead Baltimore could not overcome. Next, the Chiefs completed one of the greatest comebacks ever, erasing a 24-0 hole to demolish the Texans 51-31. After Houston's early avalanche, Mahomes ignited an absurd second-quarter surge, throwing 4 touchdowns in under 10 minutes. Kansas City scored on 7 straight possessions and formed an aura of invincibility. And finally, the Packers held off the Seahawks 28-23, taking a 21-3 lead into halftime before surviving a late Seattle rally. Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams connected for 2 scores to return to the NFC Championship. The Chiefs beat the Titans 35-24 in the first AFC Championship without Brady, Manning, or Big Ben since 2002. Kansas City erased an early 10-0 deficit, flipping the game before halftime behind Patrick Mahomes' arm and legs. The Chiefs contained Henry and pulled away with an explosive second half. Mahomes dazzled with 4 total touchdowns, Sammy Watkins caught one for 60 yards, and Arrowhead celebrated as they reached their first Super Bowl in 50 years. And in the NFC, the 49ers steamrolled the Packers 37-20, bludgeoning Green Bay with a historic rushing performance. Raheem Mostert erupted for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns, putting the game away by halftime. San Francisco jumped out to a 27-0 lead and didn't need Jimmy Garoppolo at all to punch their 7th Super Bowl ticket. In Super Bowl 54, the 49ers won the coin toss, deferred, and immediately set the tone by forcing a Chiefs 3-and-out. The 49ers then leaned into their physical identity, marching 62 yards and scoring first on a Robbie Gould field goal. Kansas City responded with a long drive capped by a Mahomes goal line rush that gave the Chiefs a 7-3 edge, and San Francisco its first postseason deficit. The second quarter saw momentum swing back and forth. A heavy rush from Chris Jones forced a hurried throw from Garoppolo, setting up a Kansas City field goal. But the Niners answered with their most balanced drive of the night. Deebo Samuel and Tevin Coleman moved the chains before Garoppolo found fullback Kyle Juszczyk for a touchdown that tied the game at 10. A potential late half field goal was wiped out by a controversial offensive pass interference call on George Kittle, sending the game into halftime deadlocked. But San Francisco emerged from the break by regaining the lead on another Gould field goal. Moments later, Fred Warner intercepted Patrick Mahomes, and Garoppolo capitalized, converting a third down and finishing the drive with a Raheem Mostert touchdown to stretch the lead to 20-10 late in the third. At that moment, the Niners were winning the trenches, limiting explosives, and forcing Mahomes into errors. And early in the fourth quarter, they had an opportunity to put the game away when Mahomes threw his second pick of the night. But then came the most memorable sequence of the game. After getting the ball back and facing 3rd and 15, Mahomes hit Tyreek Hill for a 44-yard completion, flipping the field in one play and setting up a Travis Kelce touchdown that cut the deficit to 20-17. Kansas City's defense forced a quick 3-and-out, and Mahomes went right back to work. A 38-yard pass to Watkins preceded a go-ahead Damian Williams touchdown, giving the Chiefs their first lead since the opening quarter with under 3 minutes remaining and shifting all of the pressure onto Garoppolo. The 49ers crossed midfield but stalled, turning the ball over on downs one play after Garoppolo overthrew Emmanuel Sanders for the potential game-winning touchdown. Damian Williams then broke it open with a 38-yard touchdown run, sealing a 31-20 victory and completing yet another double-digit comeback. Mahomes won Super Bowl MVP and put an end to Kansas City's 50-year championship drought. But Jimmy G's value became seriously questioned after the NFC's best overall team came up short. So how did they fare in 2020?